In a split second, the customer must decide whether to trust a stranger's hidden warning or risk walking straight into a deadly trap. The first time I saw him, he didn't look like a king at all. He just sat alone in the corner booth of Alpha King Steakhouse, shoulders heavy, hands wrapped around a glass of water like he was holding something much heavier than it looked. It was a rainy Thursday night, the kind of night when the city lights smear across the windows and the air smells like wet asphalt and cheap perfume. The Alpha King was buzzing with its usual noise, plates clinking, low music humming, people laughing too loudly about things that wouldn't matter in the morning. But in that corner booth under the flickering neon crown sign, he sat quietly, watching everything and saying almost nothing. His name was Adrian King, but we all just called him Alpha behind the counter. Not because he was loud or arrogant, actually, it was the opposite. He had this calm presence that made people move out of his way without him asking. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black shirt and a dark blazer, he looked like the kind of man you'd expect to be dangerous. But his eyes ruined that first impression. They were tired, gentle, like someone who had seen too much and hurt too deeply to keep pretending he didn't care. I was his waitress that night. My name is Mia, and I'd worked there long enough to recognize trouble, secrets, and broken hearts. Adrian looked like all three, wrapped in one quiet, expensive-looking package. He ordered something simple, a steak, medium rare, no alcohol, just water with lemon. No one like him came here alone on a weeknight for just a steak. People like him always had a reason. As I brought him his food, I noticed the small things that other people missed. The way he kept his back to the wall. How his eyes, without moving his head, tracked everyone who came through the door. How he kept his phone face down on the table but never out of reach. There was strength in him, but not the kind that shouts. It was the kind that endures. The kind that survives. A group of loud men in expensive suits sat 3 tables away, pretending they didn't see him, but their glances kept drifting in his direction. One of them had a nervous leg shake that never stopped. Another kept checking his watch every minute as if time owed him something. The air between their table and Adrian's felt tight, like a rope pulled from both ends, invisible but real. "Everything okay with your meal?" I asked softly when I stopped by his table. It was the usual restaurant line, but I meant it more than usual. He looked up at me, and for a second, all the noise of the restaurant blurred into the background. His gaze wasn't cold or intimidating. It was searching, as if he was measuring whether I could be trusted with a simple answer. "It's perfect, thank you," he said, voice low and calm. But his fingers tapped twice against the table, a tiny stutter of tension that didn't match his words. "You look like you haven't eaten properly in days," I joked gently, trying to lighten the mood. "That steak might save your life tonight." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Maybe it will," he murmured, almost to himself. I walked away, but something about his tone made my chest tighten. He wasn't just being polite. There was a weight under those words, something I couldn't name yet. As I moved between tables, balancing plates and forced smiles, I kept feeling his presence at my back, like he was part of the room's gravity. Then I noticed something else. One of the men in suits stood up and headed for the restroom at the back. Another adjusted his jacket, shifting his weight just enough for me to glimpse the outline of something heavy near his waist, hidden beneath the fabric. Maybe it was a phone. Maybe it was something else. His eyes brushed across Adrian's table, then away too fast. I'd grown up around enough bad neighborhoods to recognize what most people refuse to see. There was a coldness in that glance. A decision had already been made. The music in the restaurant went on playing. Someone at the bar laughed. The cook shouted an order. To everyone else, it was just another night. But under those warm yellow lights, the air suddenly felt colder, thicker, like the room knew something was about to go wrong. I went back to the counter, picked up Adrian's bill to print it out, and my hands were trembling just enough for me to notice. I told myself I was overthinking, that I had seen too many crime shows, that not every tense man with a jacket was a threat. But when I looked over, I caught Adrian looking toward the reflection in the window instead of the main dining room, as if he was watching people behind him through the glass, as if he already knew. I don't know what moved me in that moment. Fear, instinct, or maybe it was something softer, a stubborn belief that if you see something wrong and stay silent, you're part of it. Whatever it was, it pushed my hand toward a pen. I glanced at Adrian's printed bill. The description lines, the items, the small black words scattered down the page. An idea sparked so fast it felt like it wasn't mine. My heart hammered as I uncapped the pen and circled a word here, another there, skipping some lines, choosing others, trying to keep my breathing steady as I worked. Alpha King Steak, special cut. Behind grill, extra sauce. Gunman's back door. Deal, table 3, no refunds. Exit, alley now. I had to be careful. The circled words needed to make sense if read in order, but the bill still had to look normal at a glance. My fingers were shaking as I circled, but I found them. King. Behind. Gunman. Deal. Exit. Now. When I connected them with a quick look, it read like a sentence I didn't dare say out loud. Gunman behind you. Deal gone wrong. Exit now. I stared at it for a heartbeat that felt like a lifetime. I didn't know for sure if I was right. I didn't know if he'd even read it. But doing nothing suddenly felt like a betrayal I wouldn't be able to live with. I walked back to his table, every step feeling too loud, too slow. My legs wanted to run in opposite directions, toward safety and toward him. When I reached him, I placed the bill on the table with what I hoped looked like a normal, tired server smile. Whenever you're ready, I said, voice hoarse. No rush. Our eyes met. For a split second, I thought he could hear my heart pounding. Something in his expression shifted, just slightly, like he sensed there was more in front of him than numbers and tacks. His hand moved toward the bill. Behind him, in the reflection of the window, I saw one of the suited men pushing his chair back, standing up, jaw clenched, eyes fixed in Adrian's direction. Adrian's fingers touched the paper. I forced myself to turn away, to keep walking, to look busy. If I stayed, I would give everything away. If I left, I wouldn't know what would happen next. From the kitchen doorway, half hidden by the swinging door, I watched him lift the bill, his eyes scanning the lines. I prayed, really prayed, that he would notice the circles, that he would understand what I was trying to tell him without a single spoken word. For a long moment, he didn't react at all. Then, so slowly I almost thought I imagined it, his jaw tightened, and his thumb froze over the word exit. He looked up, not turning his head, only shifting his gaze to the glass beside him, where the room reflected like a silent movie. His eyes caught the movement of the man behind him, taking another step forward. And that was when the calm, quiet man in the corner, the one who looked like he carried the weight of 1,000 regrets, finally let his mask slip, just enough for me to see the steel underneath. His chair scraped softly as he began to rise. And before I could see whether he chose to run, to fight, or to do something else entirely, someone's shadow fell across my shoulder, blocking my view, and a voice behind me whispered my name with a fear I had never heard before. The weight behind his eyes. The voice behind me made my whole body flinch. Only 2 people at the restaurant ever said my name like that, like it might be the last time. When I turned, it was my little brother, Diego, still wearing his dishwashing apron, his curly hair damp from steam and sweat. Mia, he whispered, eyes wide, darting over my shoulder toward the dining room. You need to come to the back, now. My first instinct was to snap at him. Diego, I'm working. I can't just. Please, he cut in, and that word stopped me cold. There was a tremor in his voice I had never heard, not even the night our father walked out or when our mom got sick. It's about that guy in the corner, the one you're staring at like you know something." My heart lurched. I glanced past him. From my angle, I could only see part of Adrian's reflection in the window. His face looked calm again, almost too calm. But there was a new focus in his posture, like a soldier hearing a distant alarm only he recognized. The suited man behind him moved a step closer, pretending to check his phone. I swallowed. "I can't leave the floor right now." "If you don't," Diego said, voice barely above a breath, "you might not get another chance." He wasn't dramatic. He wasn't the type to exaggerate. For a second, I felt like the room was tilting, the plates and forks and conversations spinning just a little too fast. Our manager passed by, arms full of menus. "Mia, table 6 is asking." "I'll be right back," I said quickly, "just checking a kitchen order." Before anyone could argue, I slipped through the swinging door into the narrow hallway behind the dining room, Diego right on my heels. The hum of the restaurant muffled to a distant buzz as the door flapped closed, leaving us in the harsh fluorescent light and the smell of dish soap and garlic. I turned to him. "What's going on?" He pressed his back against the wall, chest rising and falling as if he'd run a marathon. "I heard them," he said. "Those guys in suits. They thought no one was around, but I was taking out the trash by the back door." My stomach clenched. "What did you hear?" He hesitated, as if saying it would make it more real. "They kept talking about some Alpha King. I thought it was the restaurant at first, but then they mentioned he used to run the South Side and disappeared after that warehouse fire. They said tonight was their chance to finish what started years ago." His voice broke. "Mia, I think they're here for him." The name Alpha had always felt like a joke between the staff, a playful title we'd given a quiet regular. But now, hearing it like that, with all the weight of something darker, something older, it sounded like a name you earned in a world I never wanted to belong to. I pressed my fingers to my temples, the truth crashing in pieces. Adrian's watchful eyes, his back always to the wall, his silence, the men pretending not to stare at him, the weight in his voice when he said the steak might save his life. "Did they say what they were going to do?" I asked, my voice thin. "Just that he wouldn't walk out of here," Diego whispered. "One of them said, he thinks he's a king, but tonight he bleeds like anyone else." And then they laughed. For a moment, the hallway felt too small, the air too sharp. I thought of Adrian's face when he read the circled words, the way his eyes had narrowed when he saw exit. Now, he wasn't just a random guest in danger. He was someone with a past that had finally caught up with him. Diego grabbed my wrist. "We should call the cops." "We can't prove anything," I said. "If we call without details, they might not come fast enough, and if those guys notice, it could get worse." "So what do we do?" he asked, his voice cracking with the question none of us should ever have to ask. How do ordinary people stop something like this? I didn't have an answer. I was just a waitress with overdue bills and a sick mother at home. But suddenly, that felt irrelevant. There was a man out there who had trusted nothing and no one until I slid a hidden warning across his table. "We can't do nothing," I said quietly. "If they came here for him and he leaves alone, they'll follow him. If he stays, they'll make their move once the place empties. Either way." I didn't finish. I didn't have to. Diego swallowed hard. "Mia, you know who sits in that corner every Thursday? The owner's friends. If anything goes wrong out there, we lose our jobs, maybe the whole restaurant." I thought of my mother's medicine. The rent notice folded in my locker. How many people in that dining room trusted us to keep their evenings safe and normal, like danger only existed on screens, not in the next booth? Something tightened inside of me, not anger exactly and not fear, but a stubborn, quiet refusal. My father once told me, "No one's coming to save you, kid. You save yourself or you don't get saved." I'd spent years hating that sentence. Looking at Diego, I knew I didn't believe it anymore. "Not tonight," I whispered. He frowned. "What?" "Tonight, we don't look away," I said. "Tonight, we help him walk out of here alive. We help everyone walk out of here alive." Diego stared at me like I'd just announced I wanted to fight a storm with a napkin. "Mia, he's not just some guy. If they're right, he's—" "I know what they think he is," I cut in. "But I also know this. He didn't have to read that message. He didn't have to trust me. But he did. For 2 seconds, he trusted a stranger. And I can't live with myself if that's the last mistake he ever makes." The kitchen door swung open halfway, and we both jumped. It was just one of the line cooks frowning at us. "You two hiding back here. We got tickets stacking up, come on." "Coming," I said quickly. He left with a shrug, the door flapping shut again. I turned back to Diego, my mind racing. "I need you to do something," I said. "It's risky, but it won't put you face to face with them." His hands were still shaking, but he nodded. "Tell me." I took a breath. "We're going to change the script of tonight. If they have a plan, we break it. If they expect him to leave alone, we won't let him walk out that door alone. But first, we need to warn him that we know more than he thinks." Diego's eyes searched mine. "How?" I didn't have the full answer yet. Only a sense that this quiet man in the corner, this so-called Alpha King, was more than whatever story those men had told themselves about him. There was something in his eyes that didn't match the cruelty of that nickname. Something that looked a lot like regret, and maybe, beneath that, a tired kind of hope. "I'm going back out there," I said. "And this time I'm not just leaving him a message." I placed a hand on Diego's shoulder, steadying both of us. "Whatever happens next," I added softly, "we don't act from fear. We act from courage and kindness. That's what makes us different from them." He nodded, lips pressed in a pale line. "I'll watch the back door." As I pushed the swinging door open and stepped back into the hum of the restaurant, the warmth of the dining room felt almost fake, like a stage set. Only one thing was real to me now. The man in the corner rising slowly from his chair, a bill in his hand and danger at his back. And as I walked toward him, weaving between tables and forced smiles, I knew that this quiet Thursday night was about to change all of our lives, whether we were ready or not. The king without a throne. By the time I reached Adrian's table, he was standing, his chair pushed back just enough to give him room to move in any direction. The bill was folded neatly in his hand, but I could see the faint circles of ink through the thin paper. His eyes lifted when he saw me coming, and for a heartbeat, everything else in the restaurant blurred into a distant hum. Up close, he looked different now. The softness was still there, but something else had surfaced, a focused, dangerous calm, like a storm that had chosen not to break. Yet, "I'll take that whenever you're ready," I said, nodding toward the bill, forcing my voice to sound like just another polite comment from just another waitress. He didn't speak at first. Instead, he set the folded bill on the table between us, his eyes never leaving mine. "You circled those words on purpose," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. I swallowed. "You read them, didn't you?" His jaw flexed. "I did." He glanced, without moving his head, to the glass reflection again. I followed his gaze subtly. One of the suited men was pretending to scroll his phone, but his eyes had drifted in our direction too many times. The others spoke in low tones, their shoulders tight, their smiles too thin. "You shouldn't have done that," Adrian said. His words were firm but not cruel. "You just painted a target on yourself." "I already work here," I replied softly. The target was always going to be close enough. Something flickered in his eyes. For the first time, a hint of surprise, maybe even respect. He slid his credit card across the table. "I don't want you involved in this." "Too late," I said. "We're all involved the moment someone like them walks through the door with a plan to hurt someone." His gaze sharpened. "You don't know who I am." I know who they think you are, I said. And I know you didn't come here with backup, weapons, or some big speech. You came here alone. You ordered a steak and water with lemon. You watched the door, but you didn't make a move. That doesn't look like a monster to me. That looks like a tired man who doesn't want more trouble. Silence stretched between us, thick but strangely peaceful. The neon crown above his booth flickered slightly, casting faint shadows across his face. Then he sighed, a sound so quiet I barely heard it. They call me Alpha King, he said under his breath, as if he disliked the way the words tasted. Once, a long time ago, I earned that name. Now, his eyes drifted to the tables filled with families and couples. Now I just come here because it's the one place in this city where no one looks at me like I'm a headline. I hadn't expected him to admit it, not like that, not so simply. My chest tightened. You could leave now, I said. There's a back exit through the kitchen. We can distract them if you go fast enough. They won't come after me alone, he said, cutting me off. They'll use people around us as shields, as leverage. Men like that don't care who gets hurt, as long as they get what they want. My pulse hammered. What do they want? He hesitated, then gave a bitter, almost self-mocking smile. Closure, revenge, proof that they're stronger than the ghost of the man I used to be. His voice dropped lower. Years ago, I walked away from everything. The money, the streets, the men who thought power was worth more than a single human life. It took me losing someone I loved to understand how empty that crown really was. I caught the edge in his tone, the rawness that bled through his calm. Who did you lose? I asked gently. He looked at me like I had stepped into a room I wasn't supposed to see. For a second, I thought he wouldn't answer. My brother, he said quietly. Because of a deal I thought I could control, a deal like the one those men want to finish tonight. The words hung between us with the weight of old grief. In his eyes, I saw a man who had once ruled something dark and dangerous, but who now carried that history like chains he refused to pass on to anyone else. That's why you left, I whispered. That's why I promised myself I'd never let anyone bleed for my choices again, he replied. I came here tonight to talk, to offer them something different, a way out, but they didn't come to talk, did they? I thought of Diego's trembling voice, the laughter those men shared about finishing the job. My hands curled into fists. So what now? His gaze shifted, scanning the room without moving his head. Now I do what I should have done a long time ago, he said. I protect the innocent first. Whatever happens to me after that, I can live with it. No, I said, surprising even myself with the fierceness in my voice. That's not how this ends. His eyes met mine, surprised again. You can't control that. Maybe not, I said. But I can refuse to accept that your only choices are to act like the man you used to be or to die for mistakes you already regret. He studied me, like I was some kind of puzzle he hadn't expected to find in a place like this. You're braver than you should be, he murmured. Not brave, I said. Scared, but I'd rather be scared and kind than safe and indifferent. The music shifted to a slower song. A few people started putting on their jackets. The energy of the room was changing, the late-night crowd thinning, the perfect moment for something ugly to slip into the cracks. Adrian's expression hardened slightly. They'll move when the room is half empty, he said. Less noise, fewer witnesses. The ones who stay will be their leverage. Then we don't let the room get half empty, I said slowly, an idea sparking in the back of my mind. He raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I leaned closer, pretending to straighten the edge of a napkin. Trust me for a second. You said you didn't want anyone else to pay for your choices. Let me help you keep that promise. You've already helped, he said quietly, glancing at the folded bill. Without that message, I'd be dead already. So let me finish what I started, I replied. Adrian hesitated, then gave a slow, reluctant nod. What are you going to do? I took a breath. I'm going to keep this place full, and I'm going to make it so that if they try anything, they'll have to do it with every eye and every cell phone in this room pointed right at them. I straightened. In the meantime, you don't sit with your back exposed. You move. Where? He asked. I glanced at the front of the restaurant. The wide windows, the open space, the cluster of tables where families were still laughing over desserts. Somewhere they don't expect a so-called king to be, I said. In the middle of everyone, not at the edges, not in the shadows. For the first time, his lips curved into a real smile, small but honest. You're turning their battlefield into your stage. I'm turning it into protection, I said, for all of us. I picked up the bill and his card, fingers brushing his for a second. His hand was warm, steady, but I could feel the tension in it. The tension of a man ready to fight and desperate not to. As I walked toward the counter to ring him out, my mind raced through the next steps. A birthday dessert announcement, maybe. A spontaneous customer appreciation moment. Anything to keep people from leaving too quickly, to keep the room bright and loud and full. Behind me, I heard the soft scrape of Adrian's chair as he moved away from the wall. And at the far table, the man with the hidden weight at his waist finally stood fully, his eyes narrowing as he realized the quiet king in the corner was no longer where they expected him to be. The game had changed. They just didn't know yet that it wasn't their game anymore. Turning the lights up. At the front counter, my hands moved faster than my thoughts, but my mind was racing ahead anyway. I swiped Adrian's card, printed the receipt, and forced myself to smile at another server who passed by. You okay? She asked. You look like you've seen a ghost. Just a long shift, I lied. You know how it is. She rolled her eyes and kept moving. Normal, ordinary, safe. The illusion everyone wanted to believe in. Diego peeked out from the kitchen doorway, catching my eye. He gave a tiny nod toward the back. The men hadn't moved positions near the rear exit yet. Good. That bought us a little time. I grabbed a stack of menus, more as a prop than anything, and scanned the room. A couple at table 4 was asking for the check. A family with 2 kids was debating dessert. A group of college students at the bar laughed too loudly, clearly on their 3rd round of nachos. The energy was softening, people easing into their good nights. I couldn't let that happen. I marched over to the manager, Mr. Lewis, who was checking the reservations list for the weekend. He was a big man with kind eyes and a permanently worried forehead, the kind of boss who'd slip you $50 if he knew your mom was in the hospital. Hey, Mr. L, I said, putting just enough urgency in my voice to sound excited instead of terrified. Can I pitch you something real quick? He glanced up, distracted. Now, we're in the middle of customer appreciation, I said quickly. We hit our Thursday sales goal early, right? What if we do a surprise dessert moment? Free mini lava cakes for every table still here if they stick around for, say, another 15 minutes. We announce it with a big thank you from the staff. People will love it. They'll post about it. Free marketing. His expression shifted, curiosity replacing some of the stress. Free desserts for everyone, that's a lot of comped items. We'll do small portions, I said. Tiny ones, just enough to feel special. We've got extra batter from the batch that didn't go out right. I lowered my voice. And if more tables stay, we might even upsell coffees or after-dinner drinks. You always say you want more engagement. He hesitated, calculating. Behind him, the suited men were watching the room carefully now, probably trying to figure out why their target had moved closer to the center. Come on, I pressed gently. When was the last time you got to be the good guy in front of a full house? That did it, he sighed. All right, 15 minutes. We'll write it off as promo, but you better make it sound good. Relief washed through me so hard I had to grip the menus tighter. I will, thank you. I hurried toward the bar and signaled the bartender. "I need you to ring this bell," I said, pointing to the small brass bell they used at closing time. "When I give you a nod, loud, like we're announcing the end of the world." He snorted. "That dramatic, huh?" "Exactly that dramatic." I looked over at Adrian. He had taken a seat at a more central table, closer to the windows and surrounded by other diners. He sat with his shoulders relaxed but his eyes sharp, tracking everything. Our gazes met briefly. I lifted my hand in the smallest of signals as if I were just brushing my hair back. He understood. Stay, watch, wait. Then I took a deep breath, gave the bartender a quick nod, and the bell rang out, clear and bright over the music. Conversations paused. Heads turned. The restaurant soundtrack lowered behind the bar, and in an instant, every eye was directed to the front of the room, away from the shadows, away from the corners where danger liked to hide. I walked to the center, heart pounding so hard I felt it in my throat, and put on the biggest genuine smile I could find inside myself. "Hi, everyone," I called out, letting my voice carry. "Sorry to interrupt your evening, but we just wanted to say something from all of us here at Alpha King." A few people clapped half-heartedly, thinking it was some corporate speech. That was fine. I didn't need them excited yet. I needed them listening. "Tonight," I continued, "we hit a big goal for our little restaurant. We've had regulars show up on rainy nights, first dates, family dinners, celebrations, and quiet meals after long days. You've shared your stories with us more than you know." I let my eyes drift briefly toward Adrian. For a fraction of a second, I held his gaze, then moved on. "So," I said, "our manager decided we should celebrate you. For the next 15 minutes, every table that stays will get a surprise mini dessert on the house as a thank you for being part of our Alpha King family." That got their attention. People laughed, clapped, cheered. The couple who had been reaching for their coats looked at each other and sat back down, smiling. The kids at the family table bounced in their seats. The college students at the bar raised their glasses and whooped. The energy in the room rose instead of falling, light instead of shadows, noise instead of silence. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the suited men react. One of them frowned, clearly annoyed by the delay to whatever they had planned. Another checked his watch again, frustration tightening his jaw. "We'll be coming around with your treats soon," I said. "And, just from me personally, thank you for being the kind of people who give places like this a heartbeat. You never know who needs a safe corner and a warm meal." My voice caught slightly on that last line, but it made the moment feel real. People smiled, softer now. Some nodded like they understood something they couldn't quite name. I stepped back as the music resumed, now a touch louder, and the room's energy lifted into something almost festive. Servers hurried to the kitchen to help plate the mini desserts. Mr. Lewis clapped me on the shoulder as he passed, already calling out instructions. The stage was set. I moved toward Adrian again, weaving between tables, checking on waters and coffees to keep up the illusion of normal service. When I reached him, I didn't stop, just brushed past his table as if to refill a glass. "You're buying us time," he murmured without looking at me. "So are you," I replied quietly, "staying in the open like this." He gave a tiny, almost amused huff. "It's been a long time since anyone tried to protect me with chocolate." "You're not the only one I'm protecting," I said. "I don't want anyone here to become part of their story." His expression grew more serious. "I appreciate what you're doing, but they won't wait forever. Once they realize this isn't going the way they planned, they'll improvise. Men like that improvise with fear." "I know," I said. "That's why we don't just react, we move first." He tilted his head slightly. "What are you planning?" I glanced toward the back of the restaurant, where Diego now stood near the kitchen door, pretending to carry a bus tub while actually watching the suited men. One of them shifted uncomfortably, clearly aware they were being observed more than they liked. "I'm going to make it so you're not alone when you leave," I said. "And I'm going to make it very, very hard for them to touch you without the whole world watching." "How?" he asked. I looked up at the ceiling, where a small, almost invisible black dome reflected the room back at us. "You see that camera?" I said. "It records everything, inside and outside. Half this room has their phones on the table. If anything happens, 20 videos go online before the night's over. Those men don't want that attention. The kind of people they work for don't forgive messy mistakes." He followed my gaze, then nodded slowly. "You understand more about power than you think." "I understand fear," I said. "And I understand that some people only behave when they know someone's watching." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "In 10 minutes, you're going to walk out that front door, not alone, with other people. We create a group exit. Families, friends, noise, laughter, you blend in. You don't look back." His jaw tightened. "And you?" "I'll be here," I said, "making sure no one follows you without a spotlight on them." His eyes searched mine as if he could pull the truth out of me. "You're risking a lot for someone you don't know." "I know enough," I replied. "I know you walked away once from something ugly and you're still trying to live differently. That's more than I can say for a lot of people." For a brief second, the hardness in his expression softened into something else, something almost like gratitude, but deeper. Like maybe, under everything, he didn't quite believe he deserved this chance, and yet here it was anyway. Before I could say more, a low, controlled voice cut through from the next table. "You always give your customers this much personal attention, Mia." I froze. One of the suited men had stood and moved closer than I'd realized, leaning casually against a nearby chair. Up close, his smile was pleasant, almost friendly, but his eyes were cold, calculating. He held a half-empty glass in his hand, swirling the ice. His fingers were steady. "I couldn't help noticing how much you've been talking to our friend here," he added, nodding toward Adrian. "Seems like he's getting the royal treatment." My pulse roared in my ears. The moment I'd been trying to delay had finally arrived, and it hadn't come with shouting or chaos. It had come with a soft voice and a polite smile. Adrian didn't move. His calm was back, his face unreadable. I forced my lips into a service smile, my hands gripping my tray just tightly enough to hide the tremor. "Well," I said lightly, "he is sitting under the crown sign. Seems only fair, right?" The man chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. "Yeah," he said, "seems fair." He straightened slowly, his eyes never leaving my face. "Maybe you can help us with something, then," he said, "since you're so good at taking care of people." He glanced at Adrian, then back at me. "How about you stay a moment and make sure our friend here doesn't leave early?" he murmured. "We've been waiting a very long time to have a word with him." And with that quiet threat hanging between us, surrounded by warmth and music and mini lava cakes, the line between safety and danger finally disappeared.